And we are back. Welcome to season 4, episode 3 of the VoiceCast. I had to look down to remember that it was episode 3.
Yes.
I'm Pastor Sonia, and with us, like always, we have Pastor Kaimana.
Hello.
And we have 2 very special people with us today. We have Pastor Sydney.
Hello.
And Pastor Peter.
Everyone's saying hello.
Hello.
The 2 newest member of Faith Assembly staff, we put them on here. This is part of your initiation process.
Oh, I'm so
This
excited.
is a test.
So if you don't answer correctly,
together, guys.
you know, nothing will happen.
Yeah, don't hold us accountable.
All right.
We may give you badge access to the different parts of the building.
Oh,
But you have to, like, earn
this
it.
just got
This is the
real.
test.
Okay.
So,
Answer
like,
your best.
how much access? So here we go. We're going to ask you guys some questions, and we will answer them. No one is allowed to explain, justify, or clarify. We're just going to ask a question, and then we will hold up a card to answer. We'll see how we can be, you know, people a few words. You ready? Here's first question. Okay. It's okay to, and we have to do it at the same time too, because you can't like, I'm going to change my mind. Okay? So here we go. It's okay to be friends with your ex.
Ooh.
Wow, I love it. I love it.
Consensus, guys.
Same page.
Nah,
okay.
fam.
We've all learned a lesson.
Yup.
We can tell we've all
No
learned.
explanation needed.
Next question. Okay, anyone can get out of the friend zone.
Oh, wow. What? I'm
There's
the
always a chance for that.
guys.
You just
I've
don't
seen
know.
it.
Every good relationship is
have
built on
I've
friendship.
seen it.
Yes.
Come on.
I've seen it not.
I see it. I seen it. No. Okay. You should. Everyone's wait. We have to see. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Okay. You should date for at least 2 years before getting engaged.
Oh.
I want all the explanations right now. Come on.
And down. Okay. Dates should be paid for by whoever asked the other person out.
Did we all agree,
Do we
guys?
all agree? Is that the
I
first?
like
No,
this.
we
No,
the
the
first
first one we
too.
all agreed.
I like
I was
it.
nervous.
I'm going to change it just to be
Amen.
ornery. Okay. Number 5.
Oof.
It's okay to date your friend's ex.
Oh my God.
Come on,
you
bro.
guys.
This is why I don't know. I don't know.
I thought you were going to say
I know.
yes.
I need to explain.
Oh my
I don't care
gosh,
if
you
it was
guys, I have
kindergarten.
been in.
I'm with you.
I don't care if she lent you a juice box. No.
Yes.
Wow,
Be loyal.
guys.
Okay.
Bros.
I didn't think I was going to
bros.
be at the opposite ends with you guys.
I know.
Okay.
Wow.
All right, but we are all going to agree on this.
Okay. I don't think so.
I don't think we're going to agree on this.
Christians are too obsessed with marriage.
That's very
Okay.
Oh, okay. I was like, did I
Yeah,
go
you're
for
like,
one?
wait, which
Okay.
one did I
This is my
put?
answer. This is my answer.
Okay. Oh, man. I have so
Let's
many
keep going.
questions.
Okay,
Lot of
so
thoughts.
No.
Lot of things
okay,
to
which
say.
one do you want to expand on?
Okay.
You really think it's not okay to ever date a friend's ex?
I think never.
What if
It's
it was
never
like
okay.
So
It's hard for me.
Define friend. Where are they
True.
at in
Define
your life?
ex.
Are they acquaintance friend?
What's
are
an
they?
ex?
Yeah.
Because some people
That's
think
true.
Some people literally refer to people as their exes, and I'm like, they never even talk to you.
Yeah.
What
You
they're
didn't even go on a
saying
date.
is- what they're saying though is how they feel inside.
They
right?
feel as
They
if there was a
define-
love story.
And I'm just that's
Yeah.
my friend. It just is what it is.
If they stop being your friend one day.
I mean, they probably will. If you date their ex, they're not really your
Well,
friend.
yeah, you'll give up the
Right.
friendship to date the ex.
That's
well,
what I
yeah,
like.
that's horrible.
yeah.
So they were never really your friend.
But if they organically stop being your friend and you still have feelings for their ex, then whatever. You know
I
what
feel
mean?
like, yeah,
What if
I-
they go get married? What if your friend gets married to another person?
Okay.
You still can't date their ex.
Yes.
Oh.
I agree.
It's
too.
it's weird to me. It's
But,
just weird too. Even though technically,
weird.
what if they've passed away?
So your friend
can you
can
go
just
back? I
have
thought about that, and I'm
A
like,
trail of people
Okay,
that are off
hypothetical
limits.
situation. They get married to someone else,
Right.
And then you're talking to that person now that you can date because
Right.
they're married, and you're like, I'm gonna go hang out with so and so. Like, make sure you take them here because they like this, and
Ew,
this,
well, that's
and they do
weird.
da-da-da-da-da.
And this is
they
their
do-
favorite song. And
Sorry,
this is
no.
That is gross.
No,
That's
I
weird.
can't.
That's why I
That's
answered
weird.
it based on my own like personal value. Like I wouldn't, but it's worked out for people I know.
Here's the thing. I
how do
also
I answer?
wouldn't, but I feel like I've just been around so many situations where it's happened. And then I'm like, now that I'm like the age I am or whatever, I'm like,
I guess it
whatever.
doesn't matter.
No one's ever dated. I've never really had an ex, I guess, but
Yeah.
no one's ever done it to me. I've seen it done to others.
Yeah.
But now that it's like all 10 years later,
You don't
I'm like,
really
well,
talk
everyone seems
about
like they're
it.
fine.
I mean, we're all saying
You
it
know
through the
what I
lens of our
That's
experience.
true.
Like, I've only dated one person, and I'm married to her. So
We're like, we don't actually have a lot of
worked out very
experience. We shouldn't be on this podcast.
exactly. So
So none of you guys count.
Okay. Wait,
True.
I want to explain
I do
one.
think
Okay, explain
you
one
have to
thing.
give up the friendship. I'll say that.
one?
But then
That's
see, that's horrible. So
That
then
is
it was not
horrible.
really your friend.
True. I agree with
But
all
then
that.
I also think it's also like, it's also like a high schooler. I don't know if you're like, 37 years old and you're like, yeah, I have enough friends. I'm gonna get married.
Hey, all right, but you
if
make your
someone goes,
choice.
Like, go
Which
for it.
sacrifice
Yeah,
are
make
you
your
willing to
choice.
make?
yeah. But then it's not really a friendship.
True.
Yeah.
Conditional.
But if it's a friend that you talk to consistently, I don't care if they
No, yeah,
met them in the
that's-
second
yeah, it's
grade,
weird.
right? You're like, she's the one that blah, blah, blah. You know what?
Yeah, that's my soulmate.
Because also at some point that's super like secretive. Like you're talking to the friend frequently, but behind their back at one point you're in that talking stage
That's
with the person, right?
weird.
Like,
Let's
you
say-
can't
what
tell them,
if-
hey, I have a
let's
crush
say
on
your
this person.
friend
Like,
jumps this person like last week's trash. And they're just like, yeah, gross. Why would I ever want to date them? But then you're like, but I like it. You're like,
Yeah.
I see value.
Okay.
Like, what about
Yeah.
that? When your friend's like, I don't give a rip about this person.
That's a good example. But if I'll say it like this, if you feel awkward about talking to your friend about that relationship, that's probably
That's the sign.
that's a sign you probably should talk
They're like,
to.
yeah, they did that with me too. And you're like,
I just didn't like if it's your friend, your mind wouldn't go there. Like there's just certain places
Yeah,
your mind
I
just
agree.
doesn't go. Like if you were to pass away, can Gio date Jessica?
I would like him to marry Jessica.
Really?
Because she really likes
This
my kids.
podcast took a
Ew.
turn in a direction I did not
See,
expect.
I have
you
literally
better
thought-
not.
I've thought
Either
about
one of you know,
my
literally both
deathbed.
of them are fired.
Yes, no, I've literally thought
That's
if I'm
the
gonna
one you-
pass away, I'm gonna tell Gio like,
You're gonna leave-
please marry
please.
Jessica.
You're gonna
Just
leave
for the
Jessica in the
kids?
will for him.
Yeah.
Just for the kids.
Just
See, but I
because
just
she
feel like
loves my
Je-
kids.
That's true.
She
I
loves
feel
them.
like
They
That's
can sleep in
beautiful.
separate rooms and whatever.
See, if
Yeah.
my sister passed away,
That's
Jason is
beautiful.
not allowed to remarry.
Period.
Because I cannot literally handle anyone raising the
Yeah.
boys. I'd
Yeah.
literally get mad. I think I would take him to
Yeah.
court. Because I cannot imagine anyone.
too, actually.
Well, I
That's
can-
crazy.
Oh, I forgot about it.
for custody.
No, I'm like, I am taking your
That's
kids
a
away
good
from
reality
you. And he
show.
knows this too. and
Oh,
I'm like,
God, that is so
it doesn't
funny.
matter who it is. They would all not be, it would not
I
be
would
a
watch
good
that
enough
on
woman.
Netflix.
That's
for
fine.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
will. I'm like, yes,
aunt
no.
takes
Another woman.
the father to court to try
I'm
to get
literally getting
custody
hot
of.
Yeah, I
thinking
couldn't-
about
I'm
it.
getting hot too.
Some other
Probably
woman
just the
raising
son.
Zion.
Yeah.
No.
No, I definitely,
It's
that's,
like, this is too much. We've gone too far.
Okay.
Is there another one you wanna explain?
The one that was you should date for at least 2 years before getting engaged. The only background knowledge support I have is in college. I took a marriage and family therapy class, and this professor was actively in marriage and family therapy. Like, she was a therapist. She was awesome, and she gave a lot of like advice on things like that. And her rule was always date somebody for an entire year so that you saw them in every single season. Because her whole case was like, you wouldn't believe how much the physical seasons of life actually affect
Yeah.
a person and affect the way they think, the way they act, the way they treat people, or whatever. So her rule was always 1 year. But like subtly too, when me and Jake were dating, we dated for a whole year, but then we did choose to do like a year and a month engagement because we did like the thought of like
The 2 year.
yeah, so it's
Yeah.
like we did the 2 years, but not the 2 years before engagement. But I will say like a lot, like we learned a lot in
that year.
But
Like
I'm
if you
curious 'cause, like,
just got married in that
in the first year,
after
I
the
can't
year,
even
you'd be
imagine.
like, we hate each other.
But yeah, but then I'm curious because like you guys dated your significant others for many years, but you voted no
you
or
don't
something.
need
I was-
to?
yeah, you don't need to. But
we
like,
dated
what do you?
for many years because we had to. We were 15.
I mean, they were also super young.
when we
Yeah.
met, you know?
Yeah.
But
But when did you get engaged? Were you like right out of? Oh,
no.
you were in college,
Yeah,
right?
we were in college. And again, what delayed our engagement wasn't us. It was her dad being like, I'm not going to pay for school. And I was like, I love
You're like,
you.
I'm
and I
not
would
gonna
agree with
pay
you,
for
but I was
school
like, I'm not
either.
paying for
Okay.
school. I can barely pay for myself to be here. What are you talking about?
I wasn't sure if you were like I'm still figuring it
but I feel
out
like
at year
before
6.
we even got engaged, we knew. We were like, hey,
Yeah.
like, and I'll say honestly, right? This is your brain's not fully developed at 16, but I was
Yeah.
like, this is her. Like, I just know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, nobody wants to put up with me, and she wants to. Like, this is gonna work. You know.
Yeah.
So, but I've seen couples like one of the healthiest couples I know. They met, got engaged, and married within 6 months. And I think that's a little crazy, but I will say this, like, part of what's making their relationship so strong is the discovery they're still having with one another.
Yeah.
And like, they kind of had a good foundation anyway, and let me just preface this, they were missionaries. You know, missionaries be doing crazy stuff.
Right, yeah.
But like, their relationship is actually really great. But then I've seen couples who have waited the 2 years,
Yeah.
and then they just kind of drag it on, and it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know how
Yeah.
important that 2 years
Yeah.
is. Like, you do need to see them in every season,
Yes.
but sometimes you do know. I guess I
Yeah.
just believe in love stories.
I guess
I'm really just a
more
hopeless
romantic.
You
romantic.
guys are
Just
just
love
more
love.
the exception than you are the rule.
True.
And I think in
Yeah.
my experience, I mean,
Yeah.
psychologically speaking, if you look at any book, that's why I say the 2 years.
Yeah.
Miss Connie and her Johnny, I think they knew 2 weeks and they were engaged.
Right.
So
Yeah.
2 weeks.
yeah,
2
she
weeks.
said it the
And they're
last
like
whatever, and I'm
angels.
just like,
Years or
what in
something.
the
That's
world?
insane.
So
Yeah.
that's insane. So it does
Yeah.
happen, but so the whole first year, they said like when you're dating someone, you're like still on that first impression basis. So you don't really get to know someone until the beginning of the second year. That's when it
Wow.
starts. So the first year is just first impression. The second year is real. That's why a lot of people break up after 2 years. They can pass the first year mark.
Okay.
So then
I
you
believe
know them. So
Yeah.
if you could do the 2 years, then at that point, then you really know.
makes
So
sense.
that's
True.
just more textbook facts or whatever.
Yeah.
I also feel like the older you are, it doesn't really matter. Like, we just go for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But if you're 15 years old, which once again, you guys
But
are the
that's-
exception,
yeah.
then I'm like, I just can't.
I feel like
Yeah.
I would think I was 16 or 17 and then he was 18. I can't remember what time of year, depending on what my age was.
What
But
month?
like, yeah, but I mean, we were trying to get married like at 19. Like we were like, we kept trying and trying and trying, but then, it was like really God kept being like, let's wait,
down,
like
yeah.
I was still in college. And then at one point he moved to Missouri to be a worship pastor. So I was like, can't get married there. Can we be married long distance? Can we take premarital? Like we were trying all the things.
Married long distance.
Yeah, like we were just like,
That's another good show.
Because
That's-
I've known Gio since I was 13. And when we started dating at that point, like we both
crazy.
were like, yeah, we're getting married. Like
That's
this is
crazy.
a thing. We are soulmates. You
Yeah.
know, we're soup snakes. And so like, it was really, I mean, seriously, like we were like constantly like, how can we
Yeah,
get married?
how
And
do
it
we get
literally, we got engaged like the second he got a real job here, made enough money, and me too. And then boom, we got engaged and we got married that year. But like, because of our age, I think God kept delaying our, because we knew everything about each other.
Yeah,
But we
true.
also like, we were little munchkins when we met.
Yeah.
So like,
so different.
there wasn't that
once
much
you're in
to
college,
know, like we discovered things about ourselves, once we got married and once we, we're in
Yeah.
our mid 20s, like then we're like, oh, so I'm like this, that, we
Yeah.
didn't even have the realizations
Yeah.
of that at 18.
Yeah.
So I agree.
So that is an age specific
So it's
question.
an
like,
age thing.
Yeah, like if you're like 30 something,
if you like know who you are and you're like,
take a 15-minute walk, decide.
Right. You're
But
like,
if you're
it's
like
good.
15
We're good.
minutes.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Because at that point too, you're way less guarded. If you're, when you're older and more mature, like,
But you also kind of
you know
know
what you
yourself
want.
a little bit better.
Yeah,
so
you have your own
kinda know.
money.
Yeah.
Like you're kind of like, yeah, not
But
you.
even meeting people now, right away within the first 2 minutes of a conversation if you could be friends with them
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
if not. And
Yeah.
that's just like friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's true.
any other ones you want to
my
expand
gosh.
on or you would like somebody else to expand on?
Come on.
I just feel like we did it.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember now.
I don't think Christians are too obsessed with marriage. I think that as a church, I think that's the one thing we do preach on is like that's you get saved, then you have to go get married. I do think pastors are obsessed with it. I think if Christians were obsessed with marriage, then nobody would divorce, but everyone divorces. So I wish
That's
they
a
were more
perspective.
obsessed with it. But
Wait,
the
say
Christians
that
are
again,
obsessed
say that
with
again.
Getting married.
That was good, but I
Not
don't. I
necessarily
need to
staying
compute
married.
Because I gotta know what you're
it.
saying
again.
Compute it.
I think pastors from the pulpit, it's like you get saved and then you get married. I think that's the only message we preach because that's what our congregants hear. That's why it's hard to keep people at church, especially in this culture, because they just don't feel seen. We don't
Right.
meet the need.
Right.
But if Christians are really obsessed with marriage, then they wouldn't divorce right away.
Yeah.
They would
God,
take the
yes.
counseling. They would take the advice. They would
would do everything
be careful
to
who they would
fight
date.
for it,
They would
yeah.
fight for their marriage.
Yeah.
But now it's like, oh yeah, divorce because it's okay. I think they jump to it too quick, like the world, instead of going, no, let me.
But then they're like, oh, I don't actually like this.
yeah,
I don't like what this
I think
is.
we were all thinking that through the lens of like a
Yeah.
thirsty young person.
Literally,
You know,
like just
like-
get coffee with like
Right,
someone in
exactly.
that stage, like, and that is just
oh
their
my
biggest
gosh.
stressor
Exactly.
right now.
I mean, it
Yeah.
is like one of the first
It is a
things
big deal.
Christians talk about when they
Yeah.
go on dates.
well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like it's like, so what do you want
What do
your
you think
wedding to
about
be like?
marriage?
And you're like, this is my Pinterest board.
That's true. That was me.
That was totally me.
Can you get out of the friend zone?
I just feel like some people can't. Because I've seen
Who?
people
Say names.
fail. So there was a boy. Just kidding. But I just feel like some people can't. But I mean, I don't.
think well, let me speak for the guys.
You think they just
is
give up
one
too
haircut
early?
away from getting out the friend zone. Let's go.
One night fade away.
Fade it into glory,
No,
fam. I
one
got
summer-
you.
Okay,
And
but
they
I also
just-
included girls.
A couple.
No, but girls
feel like
too.
girls-
I've seen girls literally, they just have a glow up. They come back all of a sudden from
the
school
glow
and
up?
there's like, oh my gosh. And I'm like,
Yes.
she was after you all of
Yes.
junior year and you said nothing. And now all of a sudden
Yes,
it's an
sir.
option.
Like her.
Yeah, I think, I
I
think
I've just
anyone.
seen it not work out. But I mean, I guess also because eventually they stopped trying because they're like, I can only take so much rejection.
Yeah.
So I've
you-
seen people get out of it, but
Are
I've seen
you guys
people die
the
in it.
people that encourage somebody if they feel stuck in the friend zone and they're opening up and they're like, I really feel something for this person. I think it would be a match made in heaven. But like, are you on that side being like, yes, go for it?
Oh, absolutely.
Or
I
do
love
you usually
love.
err on the side of like,
I
just
love love. I love love.
I encourage guys. I don't encourage girls. Because
Yeah,
a guy can
it's
pull
sad
a girl
for
out of.
girls.
He's
Yeah.
like, she friend zoned me. I was like, nah, sweetie, you're good. Keep going at it. Persistent. A girl, I'm like, no, stop. You look desperate.
Yeah.
Back up. Because it's
See?
hard. It's harder
does
for
look
the
different
girls.
on
Get out.
each, yeah.
Yeah, but I think I encourage the guy. I don't encourage the girl.
Yeah. I usually just like, I don't know, just leave them alone.
Just
They're just your
pray.
friend. Because I didn't like that in high school. There's had so many guys that liked me. No, like I didn't ever like the idea of like, oh, this is my friend. And then he would start like being
Pursuing
weird
you.
and like liking me. And I'd be like, you ruined it.
Yeah.
You literally ruined it all.
yeah.
I don't want to talk to you now. You're weird. You look at me weird. Like, I don't know. Like I hated
But-
the
I tell
feeling.
everybody, shoot your shot.
Oh,
Steph
I know,
Curry,
I feel like guys
shoot till your
hate
eyes
it.
get blurry.
Yes.
Boom.
I love that. Yeah. Maybe you all
guess.
have
I
that
don't like it.
audacity. Like it's but I mean, worst case,
I
they
think
say
I
the
just-
best case.
Right, I just tell both of them because I'm like, especially for that girl, if you feel friend zoned, but he didn't even know because dudes
I mean,
sometimes
guys
we're not
don't
the
know.
smartest.
Yeah.
And then you're like, wait, she liked me?
Yeah.
I kind of like her
That's such
too.
a sweet story.
Yeah.
I just heard about that happening to someone over Christmas break.
Love is
They're
they're in
love.
reminding
love?
me, and now they're in love, and they went official.
See?
January
See?
1st, they went official.
Wow.
The power of
They're going
And it was
to
the
stay.
whole like,
love.
I didn't know you liked like.
Exactly. Just
But they
shoot
were
your
best
shot.
I do
friends
think
for,
guys
like,
are way
for, like,
more
a year.
oblivious than uninterested, as I've like seen and observed now. Like some girls like, and he just doesn't ask me, and I'm like, he literally doesn't know how to like drive to his house. Like there's just he doesn't all your little signs. Like he's not
He's
seeing
not
that
picking up on any
at
signals.
all. You know, so I'm like maybe he isn't interested too, but yes, I do think sometimes like if you're
Guys are
really,
a lot more oblivious than
Yeah.
what we thought.
Especially
back when it was
nowadays.
like in high school or in college, you're like, oh, they're just idiots.
guys also like aren't like low key like they're not encouraged to like let girls know their interests anymore because they could be like brought up on charges. So like that's
Wait,
it's, like,
what?
Yes, like a
it's
lot of
true,
people,
yeah.
like it's very like
Okay, all right,
do
all right,
it
fellas,
the
I
wrong
got you over
way.
here. I got you, fellas.
If they do it
we
the
are,
wrong way.
We are, you're right, maybe a little oblivious, but let me say it like this. It's, you just want to play it cool. You don't want to be the desperate dude that puts yourself
Right.
all the way out there.
Cool
And-
with a side of humor.
Correct.
I would say.
Right. But this is what social media is
Keep
for. It's
it
like,
casual.
like a
still.
picture, fellas. Just
Right.
put a comment down there. See what happens.
A comment?
A comment.
On Instagram, something public.
Exactly. You see what I'm saying? Little comment. Great shirt.
shirt.
Great shirt.
Someone's
This
gonna write
with a
great
thumbs up.
shirt on someone else's.
And if you're watching this,
and be like,
I'm gonna see you. We're gonna see you watch Great
know.
Shirt. We're gonna go.
Like-
we're gonna be like putting the eyes.
Shooting his
I've
shot.
also been married for 8 years, so I don't know what's cool anymore. But
Don't do that.
maybe
I
just
like the Great Shirt.
Yeah, Black Santa Claus dropped that. Merry Christmas.
Great shirt, Black Santa. That's the combination.
Fire combination.
Oh my
Thank me later.
gosh.
Invite me to the wedding.
All right, guys.
It's true. It's true. That's how people know. Any other comments or rephrase on this?
That was good.
I think we did it.
That was good advice.
Amen. Okay, so here we are. Season 4 of the VoiceCast is entitled TVMA, The Voice, mature audience only. Trying to get a little more raw, trying to have a little more conversation over dating and purity and sex and all that good stuff. So as we do this, you guys know if you have any questions, comments, email us at thevoice@faithassembly.org so that we can answer any questions on our next episode to make sure that we, just kind of give you all the information that you guys want. So here we go. Let's talk about emotional dating. Ooh.
Let's do it.
How do you define it and why is it dangerous for Christians? And you could share an experience if you have one. How do you define emotional dating and why is it dangerous?
Yeah, I would define emotional dating as opening doors to your heart that you're supposed to keep closed.
Yeah.
That's good.
For someone who is really invested in your life or that you've committed to.
Yeah.
I think this is why the Bible says, like, not to be on this trail really quickly, but this is why you guard your heart. The Bible doesn't actually say guard your zipper, which you should.
right.
It says guard your heart because out of that flows everything.
Yeah.
So emotional dating, and I've seen this a ton, right? Especially in ministry, people think just because they're not practicing the ways of being in a relationship that they're free from the engagement of that relationship.
Yeah.
But like the emotional part of it is what carries all the weight.
So
you know what I
true.
mean? Especially like just with how much we text and talk and whatever DM in our culture, emotional dating is at an all-time high, and people don't understand how invested people are when they feel like they have no one else to talk to, or they feel like they're not communicating with anyone else. It doesn't matter. I'm always on my phone, but to still get that text, that notification does something to an individual. So I don't know. That's what I would say.
I mean, I really do want to title this episode "Guard Your Zipper" now.
I know.
Because that is
That's
very
good
powerful
stuff.
right there. Emotional dating?
Emotional dating. Well, as you said, like, I just think emotions are the first step to everything else in a relationship. So once you've crossed the line there, I mean, you're almost like guaranteed to cross every other line.
Yeah.
With someone, like you
Right.
said, that is not supposed to be that person yet. So as an experience, like me and Jake, before we met, we were pros at emotional dating. Like that's, I feel like, what our past relationships were. And that's what we had to like come together to talk about. Was it helped us in the long run once we met each other, because then we said, hey, we're not doing this. Like, I'm not gonna tell you I love you like the first week. I'm not going to commit my life to you. I don't know if you're the one. Like, we were very, very clear from the start. We're just not going to commit to each other in that way till the Lord makes it clear. It tells us until there's a ring. Like, honestly, it was like until we were engaged were we having those types of conversations. So that was kind of like the past for both of us, was we just early on let somebody into the emotional part of our life. We were saying everything, like, you're the one, I'm gonna marry, you're everything. Like everything you can think of that could tie yourself to somebody. That's kind of like what we were doing. In some cases, it was like we were naive. Like, I would say in some of the relationships we were in, we were a little bit convinced like it was real.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily like, I don't know, from the start we just decided to go all in, but it was a miracle and the grace of God that, like, once we got together, we were just like, hey, we're not going to cross those lines because it doesn't take you into good places. So that saved us, just deciding like early on, we're going to let this thing happen organically. Even when we feel the urge to like, man, like, I'm all in, like, this is like, we didn't.
Like,
I don't know.
Tell them. Don't tell them.
We did that with like our friends. We could talk about those things with, I could do that with my best friend. I could be like, I think he's it. Like, I'm ready to marry him today. Like, I did that, with my best friend, but I knew, I'm like, I'm never going to say that to him till we know, because why would I go there? So
I think it's just all of the risk and no security. Like, you take a risk. I don't know, you go to a war. Like, I don't know, at least you have like armor and you have like weapons, or you like take a risk and go ask someone out, but like, you have your friends to go back and sit with at lunch. Like emotional dating, it's all the risk and like completely exposing yourself, but there's no safety. There's no home base. There's no like, well, at least, that word boyfriend, girlfriend, like those things matter. Like that's the security and to open yourself up to emotional dating with really no the guarantee. Like, how do you know? It's just like, how do you know? There's never the trust there, because how do you know that they're not doing this with other people?
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's a couple of things. I think while men are very visual, women are not as visual. So I always say like what porn is to men, like words are to women.
Yeah.
So like we will, you can have a relationship, and this is the truth. People are like, well, I'm never going to emotional date. I'm like, you'd be surprised because of texting, because of social media. You literally can text someone all day,
you don't have to see
back
them.
and forth.
Yeah.
You never have to see them. You never have to talk to them, but you have this relationship going, and then there's no accountability because nobody knows.
Nope,
And you're like, you're not dating them, so no one can ask you the tough questions.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do they want? What do you have to do? Where are you at? No one knows. And you've realized months have passed, years have passed, and you have this whole emotional life connection, relationship with someone that nobody knows about. And you have fallen in love for real, because you're just like, you die if they're not texting you back or they're not sliding into your DMs. I'm like, and then it was never, and they could go, yeah, but we were never dating.
Yeah, we
and
never
you
dated.
weren't. So you gave your heart to this whole relationship. And nobody knows about it. And it literally does open up the door for more secret relationships. It does open up the door. Well, let me see who else I can DM, who else I can connect with, who else I can find online. Like I know people, especially nowadays, they have like their, all their dating apps. They have like somebody on every app.
Yeah.
And it's just emotional dating. And what it does to your psyche and your mindset, it makes you more of a recluse, and it doesn't really put love where love should be. This celebrated great part, it just becomes this dirty, ugly secret. And a lot of people become a dirty, ugly secret in people's lives. And
no one knows to help them either.
Yeah.
And you can't turn it off.
Right.
Like when this becomes a habit in your life, you're so used to talking to so many people about things you should only talk about with someone who's committed to you. You become, so when you do get in that committed relationship, that's, it's an actual relationship. You can't turn that part of you off, which is why a lot of people find themselves like, I love this person, but I still need to talk to these people. And that's weird. It's called cheating, So like,
that's what we call cheating.
Right. Like you can't, but you've conditioned yourself, just like the person who like will date someone and is not serious about it, and they're just dating for fun. Well, you've conditioned yourself to the minute you see something you don't like in a relationship, you're out, and then wonder why you get in a marriage and you're like, well, I just want to be out. Well, you've conditioned yourself to be like this. So I think emotional dating, this is why like most psychologists or like leaders or whoever, people were hiring it, like maybe just right before the pandemic, we're talking about emotional intelligence in the workplace, because even our immaturity in emotions with like relationships have now crept into our professional life, right? And now it's being seen on that scale, but it was happening over here completely. And like, that's why people, honestly, they need to have really good relationships in their life. Like, sorry to be that person who preaches, you need a small group. You don't need somebody to text, right? Like you need someone who can actually talk to you and say, hey, that's wrong. Like you shouldn't be doing that, or you shouldn't be having, and I'll tell you this, emotional dating, there's a couple indicators that are like easy to like see how that's happening. Number one, you don't need to text them at 12 a.m., right? Like if you're texting them at 2 a.m., 12 a.m.,
that's
not
a
huge
friend.
part of emotional dating.
It's not an
true.
acquaintance.
Like that's when they first hit you up too.
Exactly. You up? Yeah, I'm up. And that is there.
I feel like the you up
I would never work
text
on me.
should
I'm
just
never
be
up.
the indicator.
It
you up.
That's the other title. You up? You up?
But that kind of stuff is like you're talking about marriage. You're talking about what do you want to name your kids? Oh my God, I love that name.
What
like,
are we
bro,
gonna name
what do you
our
mean?
kids?
You don't even know his mom. Like, you don't even know his middle name. What are you saying?
He won't even bring you out in public. That's not a thing.
That's what's crazy. Like there was specifically, and then this was like more high school, so like there's a little more grace because like we're all dumb, right? But like I remember a student of mine who's I'm still like close to. There was like the two relationships that she had in school, both emotional relationships, never attached. And I mean, these were like over a year long. Like these were whatever. Both of these dudes dumped her once they found the girl they wanted to make their girlfriend. And the overlap's a little questionable, but like it's just very like, hey, when you're worth it for someone, like they're going to put a title on you, because at that point she, if she hasn't dated since, because I think it's just really wrecked her emotionally, but it's just like, all the things you tell yourself why it's not official and things like that, like none of that's real. Because once that person who's just using you right now is like an emotional, knapsack. Once they find someone else, that's another title.
Honestly.
I'm sorry. It's not funny.
It's so sad.
It is sad, but it's like they just need somewhere to put their emotions for now, and probably physical things too. And then once they really find the one that they're like, oh, this is it for me, then it's like, oh, we never dated.
Yeah.
This is my girlfriend.
It is literally, it's
and
a Christian booty
horrible.
call.
Yeah, it's horrible.
And we call it because if they didn't have sex, there's nothing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and that's the thing, that it's just like, and you literally can sit there and be like, wow, you're right. We didn't have sex, right? He didn't call me girlfriend. She didn't call me boyfriend. Yeah. I'm like, but I was just emotionally like gone through the ringer. And I'm like, it's a Christian booty call.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
But that's what I was going to say with you. Like another indicator, they don't want to be with you in public. Also, they would never say out loud any of the things they're texting you.
Yeah. Oh, true.
That, like, I've had some high schoolers as well show me some of the stuff a boy is committing
poetic.
his
It's a whole
it is poetic.
prose,
I'm like, they had to have Googled this.
Yeah, they copied it from
they are
somewhere.
only 15
Wow,
and this
he
is
writes
Shakespeare.
poetry.
This is for sure. Yeah, but then they're saying all this, and then like they won't even
Literally
acknowledge
will
them
not
at
talk
church.
to you at church.
And then they won't even also.
Yeah.
And they'll text you right after church, though.
Yes.
Here's the thing. It doesn't just
nothing
end in high
happens-
school.
No, it doesn't end
It
in high
happens in
school.
your 20s, in your 30s. You keep going too. Like it is not just a
So sad.
high
Those are
school,
the
middle school
signs,
type of thing. It's really sad.
Yeah.
But we've also society is like this now.
Right, like,
Well, yeah.
I feel like Snap Stories, that was like
Tells us all we need to know.
Oh my gosh, I'm on a streak with this person for 311 days. It's like that person would never even walk near you in public because they don't like you.
You just sent
But
a picture
guys
of your forehead in the ceiling to them for 311 days.
Exactly.
Oh
So
man, I'm
interesting.
sad.
Okay, so like along these same lines, we're gonna move forward, kind of. Let's talk about dating in the gray. And when I say that, I mean like how should we approach situations that aren't exactly sin, but definitely aren't God's best for us?
Okay. The way I see dating in the gray, I love one of the examples listed, remaining besties with your ex. Yeah, I don't even think you have to say anything. Like, don't do that. Don't do that.
Some people do though, and they're like, "Well, I can't be mean. You can't be mean." I'm like, "You can."
That's what I was going to touch on, was like a gray area that I see that's very common, and I think like I had some experiences with it, is just when I had so much proof on hand, like this isn't the person, but I stayed, like I lingered, I entertained it. Knowing, I was like, I have literally 1, 2, 3, 4 red flags. Like that's the first one I should have been done. Like I have 4 now. And I lingered, stayed in the name of like, I don't know how to do it though. Like I don't know how to end her. I don't want to hurt his feelings. Obviously the Lord set me free from that.
Amen.
But that's still common. Like some people I talked to today, that is like the number one reason is they say they don't want to be mean.
Mm-hmm. I just feel like
They don't
also
wanna be
too, we don't want to be
mean, but-
lonely. It's not just
but it
that.
really
Like
is,
we
we
want
don't
to
wanna be-
say
it's
we
not
don't
we don't
want
wanna
to
be mean.
It
It's we
is
don't wanna
right.
be
I
lonely.
think they're afraid to confront.
Yeah.
Because it is really scary.
Yeah.
But then also too, we're gonna miss the attention.
Yeah. But it's like there's nothing, like we're saying, like there's nothing sinful in the relationship yet, but just
So you also feel like you
It's
can't
true.
be called out on anything. Like when
Right,
your
you
friends are
almost
like,
justify
"Hey, what's
it.
up?" Yeah, you're like, "What? We're not doing
What?
anything." What?
Yeah,
yeah.
we're
and,
just texting.
And
Like,
your
we're
friends
just
are just like,
FaceTiming.
your friends don't even know how to
Yeah.
verbalize it. They're just like,
They don't know how to
I
keep
don't
you
know,
accountable,
man.
'cause
It's
you're like-
just weird.
Yeah.
It's hard.
So yeah, and that I feel like it's just getting the right people in your life, actually listening to your accountability. My parents were big voices in my life, like where I would finally have the guts to be like, okay, just tell me, like, just be honest, because I see it in your face. Like, I know you know. But just having like the right leaders and people in your life to ask those questions to. You have
good.
to be good at saying like, tell me the truth. Like, what do
Yeah.
you think about this relationship? Or what do you think about this
Yeah.
person? And then obviously having the wisdom and the obedience to like listen. But if you're not asking those questions ever to the people in your life,
I think from like a
You're in
girl's
the gray
standpoint
area.
of view, they're like, we'll miss the attention. From a dude like from a normal dude just listening to this, if you're still, and you're working on things with Jesus, you're like walking through, you are actually happy that you have those great relationships, right? Like you're happy because nothing's happened yet, but you're kind of hoping things will. We caught you. We see you, right? Like you're kind of hoping like, you know, like this was like, we've been friends for a minute, but like if she texted you like, hey, let's hang out, you'd be like, oh, of course, like let's make it happen. And you feel like there's enough. That's why I think it's so wrong for guys to keep people in the great, because again, like especially for girls, like they're maybe like, oh, this is a great friendship, and the dude's over there like, I hoping this turns into more. Or this is something that's happening from this perspective. I just think it makes anything that's great, it makes things blurry. It makes things hard to navigate, and it makes things difficult. And it's like, why would you want that? You're already processing and trying to figure out so many things. Like, is this another thing you want to navigate? You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's funny how I loved what you said about like just accountability, like ask your accountability. I think too many people think accountability is like, you have to ask them and you have to
aggressively tackle them.
Breastfeed them. Like, no, but it's like, no, like if you're a Christian, be like, no, for real, like talk to me. Like
tell me.
Tell me. And a lot of people ask you for the opinion. They don't really want your opinion. Yeah. They just want to have like the ruse of an opinion. But it's just like when you really love God and you really want to grow with God, when you just be like, no, like for real, tell me. You will like seek that wisdom. I love that. You will ask. You will ask. That's how accountability should be. Yes. It shouldn't be someone being your babysitter. You should like be man enough or woman enough to be like, no, for real. Yeah. Tell me, look into my life. Do you see something wrong with this? Right. What do you think I should do?
But I say it like this too, like everyone should have someone in their life that could tell them no. Right? Like who's allowed to tell you no? And especially when you're trying to navigate relationships, you need someone to tell you, hey, this isn't gonna work. Yeah. You know, and then have the integrity or the respect to listen to that decision. Like, okay, I trust their voice in my life. This isn't gonna work. But dating in the gray is possible because people don't have people in their life who can tell them no.
Yeah. And I think we think we have those people, and then when they tell us no, we're like, well, you don't get it. You don't get it. You just don't understand.
What's so mean about it?
I know,
he knows
like
poetry.
Oh, they just said it really harsh. And they just don't know how to explain, you know, and it's like,
you don't even know.
He's a follower of Christ. He knows Jesus starts with a J.
Like you just that's just what someone else said. You're not even.
That's always
thinking.
like one of my favorite things about Pastor Joel. Because like I was his person when he would date, and he would come in. He's like, "What do you think about this person?" I'm like, "Nope." He goes, "Okay," and he would close the door and he would leave.
She's like, "Look at her roots."
I promise you,
it's a no for me.
Just, he would come back, literally come back. Hey, how about this girl? And I'm like, "Nope." Okay.
But you know, like the problem is like and I know him because I know he's like he would do it before any emotional attachment.
Yeah.
Other people do it after 6 months of emotional dating.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, by the way.
What do you mean no? Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Like, oh, it's too far.
They're like, well, we took a trip together. This is, and you're like, they're like, what do you think?
Too late.
And I'm like, oh, well.
Late.
You're already pregnant with his child, so I don't know that.
How did we go from a trip? Okay,
you know honestly, what happens on trips.
I'm not even joking. That literally just happened to me. Like,
to you?
Well, a situation. Okay, this person that I was like, we had a team of people discipling this person.
Wow.
And I know. Literally, we needed a team. Yeah. You know what I mean? We had a team of people discipling this person, and they were coming on our leadership team, and they had someone who reached out to them, slid in their DMs, went on a trip with them, and then called us, put us on a group chat, and said, hey, I need to tell you guys something. You know this person? Like, we're pregnant. And like, I don't know how it happened. I'm like, well, I know how it happened. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Didn't guard the zipper.
Right, exactly. And then proceeded to be like, well, I guess we should just get married. And we're like,
you were like, oh, is this a master plan?
So it's just funny that you use that as an exact example.
I know.
Because that happened.
Discernment.
Stay away from Memphis. That's where they went.
Crazy.
Oh my God.
Yes,
we're crazy.
And they're not obsessed with marriage.
And we're
just obsessed with sex. And the idea of love.
Guard the zipper.
Don't try to, this isn't a marriage situation to happen one time. Not never
True,
again.
don't take
It's
that
not gonna
advice.
be immaculate.
Do the great shirt thing. Don't do that.
Great shirt.
Great shirt sounds really good right now.
Black Santa.
Don't take no trips.
Why was he on a trip with her or him or whatever? I don't know.
No, they took a trip together.
People take
Bro,
trips.
that's a thing.
Maybe
I've been
try to
seeing it.
Take trips.
And people are bold enough to be posting.
Like
I
first
would get
date
into
trip.
so much trouble if I went on a trip with somebody who like.
But people today, they're bold enough too to be posting like mirror selfies in the hotel room.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. People
do it.
take
How
trips.
did it happen?
Don't do it, guys.
Oops, I got pregnant
Yeah.
by mistake.
Anyway.
He sneezed.
Father,
and-
have mercy.
We don't know how it happened.
Okay, Jesus, help us, God.
Oh my goodness.
Amen. Okay.
No dating in the gray.
No dating in the gray. Okay, in marriage, you commit to love a person for better or worse. It's probably in your vows, maybe not. You could have it like a more modern day hippie vow. Anyways, in short, whatever happens, you don't walk away from the marriage. However, before we tie the knot, we're told to be wise, know our worth, and be willing to walk away if we need to. So, how can we date with conditions and then jump into an unconditional marriage? Repeat the question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
So like before we date, we're like,
Just-
be wise,
Yeah.
know your worth, you know what I'm
the
saying? Like,
values,
no value, blah, blah,
standards.
yeah, make sure,
check,
all
check,
that good stuff. And, walk away if he's not the one, walk away if she's not the one, blah, blah. But then all of a sudden, then you get married, and it's like, okay, for better or worse. How can we date with conditions and then jump into an unconditional marriage? Like, how do we switch it up to not go, oh, never mind, I'm divorcing.
right, because that advice changes overnight.
Drastically.
Like literally the night you're, before you get married, you
say,
could still
I
be like,
do.
listen,
Yeah.
for real.
Walk away.
For real, you love them. Like for real, you want to do this. And then the day after you're like, well, dude, you said yes. That advice is different.
I think if you do it right, and obviously you can disagree, if you do it right, that when you make that commitment, it will be a little awkward in that first fight. Like if you actually hold to the conditions in the beginning, after you get married, it'll be like, I'll just be honest, like even just like all the things that come with marriage, you're like, oh, I can't wait for my wedding night. It's gonna be amazing. But then you've been conditioned to be like, hey, stay away from her.
Right,
You
you're
don't
like, we're
touch,
not allowed
you don't
to
even
do
look
this.
in her direction. So on our wedding night, you're just like, oh my God, what is going on? Help, whatever. So, but I think too, like somebody gave me really good advice when I was young, and I really looked into it, and it helped me. When we talk about the Bible saying not being unequally yoked, like that has nothing to do like with egg yolks, right? We're not talking egg yolks. We're talking like yolks that were put on an oxen, right? Like that's how they move things in the day. So when someone said don't be unequally yoked, they were talking about not like mixture, they were talking about pace, right? Like, so if you don't want to put like a yoke on a big ox and a small ox because the big ox will carry all the weight and burn out easily, and the small ox will die because it's getting drowned. And you don't want to just put it on two small ox because then they can't pull it, right? You want to make sure that they are walking at the same pace. And so someone told me, they said, run as hard as you can after the Lord and look over and see who's chasing him as hard as you, right?
that's
Who's
good.
made that
I like
commitment.
that,
And then decide, okay, they've already committed to something else, so I know they know how to be committed.
Amen.
Maybe they could commit to me, and you set conditions for your commitment
Like, will
initially.
you be my ox?
Exactly.
Will you be my ox?
Let me put this on you, girl.
Will you
Right?
put
And you
this
just-
yoke on?
and but I just thought that was super helpful.
That
That's
is
how.
good.
But if you're moving at the same pace, you can slowly creep into. These were the conditions that we set up, and now we're moving into unconditional territory together.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can advocate it together, and I think that's helpful.
Yeah, I think that, like what you said in the beginning about like dating someone in all the seasons, I think that we are obsessed with getting married. I agree, the whole staying married, not necessarily according to the stats, but I think like literally we just think I gotta get married because like we can't have sex before marriage.
Yeah.
Like we just need to make it so that we can, it literally that's as Christians
And
we're
the
like
wedding
we just
season
gotta
itself too. Is
yeah.
something
Oh, and then now
everyone is
especially like I got
yeah.
married 6 years ago
Yeah.
and like I thought people were obsessed with weddings back then, and now it's like super speed, like whatever. And so that's on our mind, but I think we have to take advantage of the dating. Like seriously, like you shouldn't get married if you haven't had at least one fight.
Right.
Like see how that person fights.
Right.
Meet every awkward family member.
Yes.
Meet,
Family
like
is
have
so
ask
big.
every question. Like every single question. I remember before we got married, at least 4 times, like interspersed. Like this was a planned thing. I would just like look at you. We'd be talking about like something random, be on a date, whatever. And I'd look over and I'd be like, "Are you addicted to porn?" And I would just like I wanted to catch him off guard.
Wow.
I wanted to like, I wanted him to be
He's
so.
mid-Chipotle.
I wanted to see his face. Yep. I wanted to see him react to how I said, like and I was just like, and every time he'd be like, "No, I'm not," and he'd be like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "'Cause don't you dare marry me addicted to pornography and I don't even know about it." And I would be like, and literally I felt bad because he did nothing wrong. But I was just
Not the
like,
time
that
and
was one
place.
thing. I was like, I cannot. I've heard too many stories.
Yeah.
We cannot do this. If you're going through something, you gotta tell me. But I was scared the first 2 times. The second 2, I was like, I'm pretty sure we're good. But I was scared, but I was like, I need to know this about you.
Yeah.
You know, and some people can still lie.
Yeah,
But that's what I'm like, marriage is forever.
Yeah.
So yes, you have an opportunity to walk away all the way up
Yeah.
until you say I do. And like, doesn't matter how awkward it is for them, doesn't matter how mean you feel.
Yeah.
This is the rest of your life, you know. And if it's not the rest of your life, then all of a sudden you have kids, and you're gonna get divorced, and then your kids are gonna live in 2 homes. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much stuff you can bring into. And then those kids are at XR, and we're praying for them because they have no idea who they are, and they're like, I don't know what to do with my life, you know. And I'm like, I don't want that. So I grilled Gio, and he.
I mean,
he grilled
that's
me
intense,
too.
but I'm glad you said that, because again, together, like we can't, like, if one person moves into the like the conditional spiritual conditions to like this is unconditional, and that other person's still tiptoeing in and trying to figure out, and this person's trying to woo them into being like, no, I'm really gonna be here for you. I'm really that makes it so much harder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then what happens? That person finally gets there, and this person's like, well, I had to just walk you here. I don't know if I want to be right. Like that. It's something we gotta really just ease in.
Yeah.
Like. And those questions, though they're intense, they're the right questions for the moment.
You don't want to find out later.
Yeah.
Right. You want to know right
but
then.
But even the intense and awkward questions, even though it's also like not be afraid to ask, but also not be afraid to answer, it does move you in a better, secure spot in your relationship. So you feel comfortable like in that. It may feel awkward at first, but when it's the person, that awkwardness turns into security.
Totally.
And like to have it, that's all you could, I mean, obviously respect, but like have security in your marriage that you know that
Just
they're not going to dip out,
Yeah.
that they're not going to leave, that it's like we're in this together, you know, because you know that I'm going to ask you awkward questions, and then you know that like, well, I'm going to answer you, and I'm not going to be afraid of it, you know, so.
Yeah, I think in the conditional part of the relationship, there were like major things I always had on my mind that was like, obviously Jesus is like the number one condition. Like if I could sense anything off, like, oh, they don't pray, they don't read, they don't like anything like that, obviously. But then it's funny, like before I even told that story of the question you asked Gio, addiction was like a really big, like, I don't know, a very big red flag that I was like, if addiction is a thing, that has to get fixed, that has to get dealt with like before the marriage thing. So like relationship with Jesus, addiction, and then their relationships. So like family, friends, like you said, meet every family member, but family is like the biggest, one of the biggest things you're going to deal with in marriage, like each other's families and whatever. So then also just like studying, who is this person's family? How are they raised? How do they treat those people now? How do they treat their friends? Like studying those things, and then values too. Like what mattered to that person? Where did they put their time, their passion, their energy? Like on the spectrum of like priorities, values, where did those things land? So I feel like once all those conditions were like being met in the way that I felt like God was telling me, or I don't know, it lined up with his word. Like I was like, great, okay, we can move to this step then of engagement. And then in the premarital counseling, all those things get dealt with even more, and you get to talk through it all. And everyone needs to do premarital counseling.
One thing that someone told me, like marriage advice, there was like, no one gets better after you marry them. Like they were basically like, no one's nicer after you're married. No one's, you know, like no one's actually no one's more considerate after you get married. Like, and it actually is true. Like maybe you're happier once you get married, maybe, even though that still doesn't necessarily always make you happy. But they were just like, so if they're mean to you right now, they will be really mean to you once you get married.
Exactly.
If they are jealous right now, they will be very like, they were just like, trust me, like, and I've heard the things too, like, yeah, I know, you know, he's like this, but I'm just hoping once we get married, like it's gonna change. And I'm like, no, it's not gonna change. It's gonna get worse. So I've always given that advice.
Since he was 7, he's not about to change for you.
Right, we're not changing. If we're changing, we're getting worse and more crabby and more cranky.
Some good advice someone gave me too. They said marriage is not about what you love, it's about what you can handle. So you're like, right, like that's too, that just is what it is. It was an old man who's like,
but
he said like this, he was like, marriage is not what you love, but what you can handle. I was like, wow.
He knows.
And
he was
like, because here's the thing. He's like, this individual is, they might be in the happiest season of their life right now. All these things are going well. They found you. They're lost in love.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, what? You're going to face difficult situations just because life is difficult. So when they're handling those things, like when you were saying about addiction, my word came that I thought about is response. Like, how do they respond to stuff? What kind of person are they under pressure and in the moment?
So good.
Because that's a lot of life.
Yeah.
That is life.
Okay, there was a scenario I was in with Jake. We were like in the beginning stages of dating, and we were in the car, and he got pulled over by a cop. And I was actually thinking, I was like, I'm gonna take note on how he responds in this situation, and it's gonna be a really good indicator of like just his self-control, like his emotions, how he respects authority. I don't know why. Like, it was so silly because
he was under pressure.
It was just like,
I mean, he was probably sweating.
His headlight was out, so he also wasn't doing something that was like, he wasn't speeding.
Right.
Not that there's like a level of whatever.
He was breaking the law, Sydney.
Yeah, he was
Put it out
breaking the
there.
law.
He was a
His headlight
felon.
was out, but
He was a
didn't
felon.
know. It happened in that moment. Like, I know he didn't know because I got in the car with him that night and I didn't see a headlight out. So anyways, he gets pulled over. Cop's like, hey, your headlight's out, whatever. I feel like in most cases, like, cops are nice when you're like, I'm so sorry, that must have just happened. Like, we didn't know that. Maybe it was a taillight. That's why we didn't see. I don't know. The cop gave him a ticket for like over, I want to say it was $200. It was something like, it was a fat ticket for like something that I've been
you don't
in
get a ticket
scenarios
for
with.
that.
And I
Yeah.
was like, what? And the cop was just very angry right away with like, yep, sorry, I'm giving you a ticket tonight. Like, it's just too dangerous, blah, blah. And we were like, okay. And Jake was distraught, but just said, yes, sir. Like, okay. And he took the ticket and he paid it. And I remember being like, I'm marrying him. Like,
Aw,
this is
Missy,
this is
that's
awesome.
That's
I'm
all
like,
it
his
comes
You
down
heard it here
how he
first.
responded.
Don't be
I'm
afraid to
like,
get pulled
I love-
over.
Y'all pay your tickets.
Pay your
Yes,
tickets.
I'm like, amen.
Capture a
Like,
heart.
This
But
stinks that this happened,
we
but
do
it's
watch
real.
all that. How you treat other
I
people, how you
know.
treat your friends, how you treat your
Yeah.
family, how you treat your
I
mom.
know.
Like, we're watching that.
How you
and
treat
that,
your mom is big.
And that, like,
Yeah.
either that will literally,
I
like,
know.
it'll raise your stock or it'll go, like,
I think,
super down.
one thing for me that I like, just because of just how I was raised and stuff, like
Yeah.
I was never gonna marry an explosively angry person.
Yeah.
Like it would immediately, explosive anger, I'm like, you're dead to me. And so I remember, like, if you know Gio, you know he is like the least angry bear of all the bears. Like he is, and his family too. And I'm like, I'm like, come on guys, let's get mad about this. Like, come on.
Let's get in a
and
fight.
he's just, he is so calm, and I've seen him through all those different scenarios, and he's been embarrassed, and he's, you know, when his car got damaged, like all that kind of stuff, and that was one big thing that I kept looking for. I'm like, is he gonna explode right now? And he never did, and he still to this day just, that's not who he is.
To me, it's
Wow.
super big finances if they tithe.
Yeah,
Like right away if they tithe and if
Wow,
they're
that's
givers.
actually
I think being givers like
massive.
super. I mean, I think that's the middle child in me. That's whatever. But it's like I'm like, they need to be givers. They need to be generous because if they're stingy, they're going to be stingy with me and with the Lord, and that's not a thing.
Shoot.
Yeah,
Finances
if they're
is
stingy- If they're
big.
stingy with God, you ain't get nothing.
Right.
Not
Right. You're like, I don't want my house to be cursed.
I hate like stingy people. Like, oh my
I
gosh,
do
that's
feel like
so
finances though,
unattractive.
like people don't talk about it till
Yeah.
you're like
Yeah.
far into marriage or like 3 months in. Like that is a big area that's not really dealt with, and it should be a condition.
Well, yeah, because how much
Should
debt do they
be,
have?
right?
Which is weird. You don't want to
But
say that on the
also just
first
how
date.
do they steward like
Yeah.
what God is
Right.
giving them right
On
now?
the first date, what's in your 401k?
Be like, let me see.
Right? How
What's
much
your
debt
debt
do
to
you have?
income
Do you have?
ratio?
Yeah.
Yeah.
that is big.
That's huge. So if Jake would have responded like me with security, you would have been out.
He would have just gunned it and kept going, a high speed chase.
Should have been like, there he is, not him.
You're like, no, off the list.
Okay, but we're kind of running out of time. So I'm gonna just ask you the last question. How do you retain your personal identity? Just right now, being married, in work, in life, how do you retain your identity? Because it's super important to not lose that. Obviously, your identity in the Lord. How do you do that in marriage, in life, in ministry? How do you retain who you are? You know, number one goal is to be a child of God, to love God and to be known by Him.
Amen.
How do you keep that?
I feel like you answered it. Like you
Okay.
need that, but and anyone can disagree. I think it's the same in all of those seasons. Like single, dating, engaged, and married do the same thing, which is just like God has to be number one, and you have to have something personal and intimate with Jesus. Like it cannot be connected to anything else. It can't be, I'm really good with God in this type of season, or, oh, if I start dating someone who's really good with God, I'll lean on that. Or if I marry someone who's gonna like do their devotions with me every day and pray with me every single day, like there just has to be
that's not
something
happening.
individual between you and God in every stage.
That's good.
And like that's how you have the personal identity.
Right.
And then you don't
it
have
doesn't
identity
change
issues.
with the stages.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's just the way to avoid identity issues. Like you're just always going to be secure and like, this is who God's called me to be in all these things.
Yep.
When he sends the person, I'm still called to this. I'm still like, these are my areas of obedience. Maybe they expand, like you have new responsibilities and new things you become called to. But I would hope in those seasons, not much changes from like the root of what he called you to when you were single, and you know what I mean?
Amen.
But I do think he expands it and grows it.
I think
so.
that personal time is the right answer. One thing that helps me a lot, both in all those seasons, especially in the married season right now, is just being thankful. Like every day I try to tell my wife what I'm thankful for about her or something she's doing. And then also when I'm reading the scripture, I'm telling the Lord what I'm thankful for that I'm reading about, whether it's his favor, his mercy, his grace, his rebuke, right? His discipline, whatever it is I'm thankful for, because that thankfulness in me, it creates like a sense in me, or just anyone that is grateful for anything, this like, I'm listening.
Awareness.
Yes,
You're aware
I'm
to
aware.
just everything he's doing.
And that helps you maintain your identity, because if you're not thankful for the way God wired you and what he put in you and what inspires you, then you're not going to be able to be yourself. I've found that the biggest or kind of catalyst for imposter syndrome is people who are not grateful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
When you're not thankful for who you are, you start to look and, well, I wish I
look
had
to
that,
the
and I
left
wish
and
I was
right.
there.
Yeah.
But when you're
Right.
like, man, this is what God entrusted to me.
Amen. Yeah.
This is so great. And when I do that in my,
So good.
honestly, in dog trading, we call it positive reinforcement, but it works for every relationship, even yourself in your own life. Right? When you start talking about what is good, and I'm not trying to be like this happy-go-lucky, like you should just always do it, but when you're staying consistently thankful, that's what unlocks, I feel like, who you are. I'll say it like this. When we start talking about porn, I've led more people away from that lifestyle by being thankful for what God called them to and who God called them with. More than anything, more than discipline, more than like, hey, you shouldn't do this because da-da-da.
Yeah.
But because, hey, I'm thankful for this, it disengages whatever's going on in your heart. Thankfulness is a weapon.
I think that both of those things kind of remind me of just having that like Christ forward confidence in who he made you. Right? Like it goes back to that. Like single, dating, it doesn't matter. And I feel like I don't have any clout in this because I got married so young. But like I would tell people even growing up, I'm like, yeah, I've just never been boy crazy. My parents never forced me to date or be married. They never made me like wear earrings to leave the house. So like I don't know. I saw my mom, she was like the head of intelligence at her Air Force base, and like she was a coach. Like I don't know, I just saw like very confident women growing up. So I never ever felt that, which I feel bad because most girls are raised to be insecure.
Yeah.
I never felt that. So even the friend zone thing, like I didn't like guys trying to be more than friends with me because I'd be like, no, I already decided I don't like you. And I'm like, and I don't want you to talk me out of it because it's not gonna work. You know, like so and all of that though is just centered around like because this is Christ made me. So like I'm good. You know, if you don't like me, I'm good. If you like me, I'm good. And then going into marriage, I think a lot of people, because secretly I think a lot of us hate ourselves. I think that's one of the biggest things we deal with as Christians, especially because we're told we're not supposed to.
Yeah.
When you hate yourself and you go into marriage, you usually end up being more miserable because you're like, finally, this person, they're going to bring me all my worth. They're going to define me. It's going to be great. And then it's never that. So then you're like, wow, this was my big hope for my whole life, was that this is going to fix it all. And it doesn't. So then that's when you're very miserable in marriage. And you're like, you know what? Forget about this. I made a mistake. And it's hard. So I think when you're grateful and you know God for real, you have enough confidence to know how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. No, somebody
Stuck on the dog training part too.
Somebody
Positive
told me,
reinforcement.
they said, this just happened to me. I was on a retreat with the staff that we just got off of, and the speaker there said, hey, he said, I tell my staff every morning, we're going to spend 30 minutes, you're going to be loved by God. Now, I've been a follower of Jesus, honestly, my whole life. So I thought to myself, this is foolishness. This is dumb. I said, bro, anybody can sit there and be loved by God. And he challenged me. He's like, Pete, I dare you to leave this meeting right now, go upstairs, and for 30 minutes without a timer, sit and be loved in the presence of God. So I get up there, and just honestly, I get up there, and I even went old school. I kneeled by the bedside. I'm like, Lord, here I am. And I'm just sitting there. And I realized really quickly, like, how much of my time with the Lord is me telling him what I want or who I want to be.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And not just receiving who he's made me to be.
Amen.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna be loved by God, right? Like I'm really focusing my mind on this. Then I start crying and I'm embarrassed because even though I'm just in the room by myself, I'm a grown man. I have 4 chest hairs. Why am I crying? Like I'm just like wiping my eyes. I'm going through this entire experience. I start thinking about all the things that have like come up in my life. And I'm like, you still love me and you're for me, right? Just like the reinforcing of that identity. Yeah. So I go through this whole thing and I get up and it has been 12 minutes. And then, so I went downstairs, apologized to that man and went back upstairs.
And you got some more love.
But what
God.
I'm trying to say is that is such a huge part of being a follower of Jesus is receiving your identity, sitting there and understanding like you don't have all the answers. You're not doing it perfectly. Yeah. God didn't just shape you. He is shaping you.
Amen.
And I'm going to sit alone in the presence of the Lord. I'm going to be confident in who he called me to be. I'm going to remain grateful. Yeah. And somewhere in that mix, I'm going to find my identity and he's going to continue to reinforce that identity.
Yes.
I think that's huge.
Because also he is finally enough for you.
Right.
Like that's at the end of the day, like in the seasons before the dating, engaged, marriage seasons,
kids.
You need a long season, I think, of just being so content with singleness and being so and enjoying it, like loving life. There is a long season in college for me that it was just like, there's so much blessing in this right now. Like I get to develop awesome friendships. Amen. I get to discover new things about my individual calling right now. So also just having, of course, every season where you spend 30 minutes being loved by God, like every day, but that season of singleness too, just getting to vocalize out to God, like, man, you are enough. And this is the greatest love I could ever have, I could ever experience. I think that's like pivotal in your identity first and foremost. And then the other seasons. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
We're out of time. Thank you so much. Let me give you guys a little, just kind of synopsis. Thank you so much for everything you shared. In January, we do this season of prayer and fasting, and we ask everyone in our ministry to write down prayer cards and prayer requests, and we pray for them every single day for 21 days. And it kind of struck me a little bit more than usual. All these cards right here are people dealing with sexual issues. Mm-hmm. So dealing with lust, dealing with sexual identity, sexual brokenness, sexual assault victims. Like it's just a lot. So we pulled them out. I've been praying for them consistently, but we want to, in order to meet the need, we're here for our people and we want to have this open dialogue, but we want these people to know that we're here for them. Yeah. We want to make a difference. People shouldn't be walking around just clueless because the sexual perverseness in our society, it's getting worse and it's getting younger. Yeah. So appreciate so much for everything that you guys had to say and all your advice and all your wisdom. We just need to let God love us and everything that he made us. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us on episode 3 of the VoiceCast. If you love this, click and subscribe. Also share it. Make sure just right now, just text it to someone and be like, yo, you need to listen to this because it'll impact and change their life. See you guys next time.